Hello, and welcome to Stand Up Your Tubes, where we control the tubes and the tubes do not control us. So I am so excited to present to you a little doll that's made with 3 tubes. So we eliminate the problem of sewing the arms on, of making sure we get our shoulders right. We no longer have to position our legs. Everything just comes together flawlessly. So this has wings because you can leave it as just a little doll, or you can add the wings and make it an angel. Has an adorable little baseball cap with a brim on it. But what is unique is that you can articulate the legs. So it can easily be standing or sitting. And that's what makes it so adorable. So let's get started. We need just 3 tubes. That's why it's so quick and easy. So crank out 2 tubes that are 80 rows, and they will become our back legs and our body. Crank out another tube that's 60 rows, and that will become our arms. So let's get started. The 60 row tube is our arms. So I'm going to fold it in half, snug up each end, and then tie a simple knot, mattress stitch to the center, mattress stitch to the center, and 11 rows will be inside your body tube. So just come to what you believe is the center. So I'm going to put the little knot, mattress stitch in, pick your row so you can do a nice neat mattress stitch where if your rows, the points of your V-stitch are going to the left, then keep them to the left all the way across. And I'll join you back when I have mine mattress stitched to the center. All right, I made it to the center. Now I'm going to take my mattress stitch yarn and just pull on it enough to just put a little bit of a curve up for our arms so that when we put our doll together, the arms will just have a little bit of a gentle curve like this, so they're not just straight out. So that's optional, but I think you'll want to do it. And then tie this, when you get just a gentle curve up, just so they're off your table, tie it together in the middle and flip off your yarn threads. Make sure you pulled that mattress stitch nice and snug. Alrighty, so we have a gentle curve on our arms. We're going to do our legs the same way. Cinch up really snug each end, put a little knot, and we're going to mattress stitch towards the center. And bear in mind that 11 rows will be inside your body tube, and we are going to sew towards the center. When we mattress stitch about this far, we're going to snug on our mattress stitch yarn and pull that toe up. So let me go off camera and I'll stitch about up to here and I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to very, very lightly stuff it, but we're going to keep it away from, this is going to be the body. We don't want to stuff it, say 2 fingers from the body tube so that we can have our legs come down. We don't want stuffing up in that part. So let me get a little mattress stitching done and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I stitched up about six fingers worth to about right here. And now I'm going to pull on this so that it snugs it up all the way to the tip. There, snug, really snug. And then just by pulling it a little bit more, I'm going to bring up my foot. like this. And this is just about the middle right here. So I'm going to then take just little wisps of stuffing like this and put it into the tube just to fluff it up a little bit, but not to make it stiff, just so it's not completely flat. So just little wisps, but I want to keep it away from this tube so that when the leg comes down, the hip area doesn't have any stuffing in it. So just keep that in mind. Put it temporarily inside your tube and make sure that you can bring it down like this and that your hip area doesn't have stuffing in it. So I'm going to do both sides, stuff gently to about right here, mattress stitch up, and then I'll join you back. Make sure you get your toe pulled up just by pulling on that stitch. Alrighty, so I've mattress stitched up both directions, stuffed to about right here, very gently. And now I'm in the middle. This is the time for you to just make sure your foot is still up. You can, if it's laying back down, just give it an extra little tug. Give this an extra little tug so your toes are up. Make sure your mattress stitch is totally closed. And I'm going to tie a triple knot right here. And bring it to the other side. Knot it again, because this is going to be what keeps our leg from pulling through our body tube. We'll use this later, so just leave this hanging. And there's our legs. So we have our arms and our legs now. The mattress stitch coming up on both sides of the foot actually are at the top of the leg. So with our body tube now, this is our 80 row. We can just snug it up over about 3 fingers, but we don't want to distort the end of the tube. We're just taking out all the extra loopiness. Okay, and I'm going to roll it so that I'm pulling it from the center rather than from the very edge, because we're going to be mattress stitching on the very edge. Okay, so count down 14 rows off of your one that wraps around your cast on or cast off thread. Okay, and put a pin in there. That's 14th row is where we're going to go over, under, and draw it in to make the head. So check it for any tuck stitches, anything you want to hide. I don't see anything. Fold it over. Line up your top edge. And then make sure you mark your row. Get a couple bobby pins, put it in the row so that you're sure you're mattress stitching into the exact same row, going all the way around on both sides. I'll mark mine in a minute, but this is lined up right here where the V-stitches. You would think they would both go the same direction, but because we're folding the tube instead of bringing 2 tubes together, this stitch is pointing this way, but when it curves around, it starts going that direction. So that's why I'm saying mark it with a bobby pin, and you'll be sure you're staying in the same row. So we're going to go down 14, 15, 16, 17. So we'll be 3 stitches past where we marked for our neck, and when we cinch our neck up, that'll allow us to have a shoulder. So go 17, and it's easy to count that. Go in your first stitch, 1, 1, and then you'll go under 2 bars, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. You'll end on an odd, so you'll do 16, 17, 16, 17. Snug that mattress stitch up and just leave your yarn end hanging. Do the same thing on both ends. So I'm going to do mine, 17 on both ends, and I'll join you back. All right, I've gone down 17. I started by just tying a knot in the end of my thread right here, snugged up that mattress stitch, and then pull it like this so you're not distorting your tube. And we can keep our head nice and rounded and big. So after you cinch it up, pull on it, and then just leave this hanging. This is where we're going to go over, under in a minute. That gives us our 3 stitches for our shoulder. Just a little tip. So I'm going to do the other side down to 17, and then we'll take a piece of yarn and go under a row, over, under, and we'll stay in this 14th row right here. I'm going to start in the middle and then stitch up, pull on the stitches until I've gathered up the neck. And that'll be the next step. Okay, so where we marked our 14th row, let's go over a row, starting in the middle, over, under, all the way around. And then we'll snug it up, and that'll form our neck. And I'm going to mark it on both sides so that I know that I'm going straight. I'll join you back in just a moment. I made it all the way around, so I'm going to snug this up. These are way too long. Okay, so we're making the neck now. I'm going to tie a knot. Bring it around to the other side. Knot it again. I can get it cinched up a little bit more that way. Put your finger right on that knot, keeping it snug. And I'm going to bring it back, put one last knot, and bury my yarn ends. One more knot. And we're ready to insert our arms and legs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bury these ends, and we'll put the arms and legs in. Alrighty, so let's insert the arms into the body tube and line it up so you have the same amount coming out on each side. I'm just going to do mine like this. I'm going to go with that. Okay, so we have this piece of yarn right here that we were using to mattress stitch down. We went our 3 extra stitches and stopped on 17. So now all you're going to do is rethread your needle, stay in the same row that you started up here. We're going to just keep that same row going. Go in, I start with 1 bar just to get a good secure stitch. Then go under the row that's right under that bar, catch 2 bars, go under the row under there, and snug it up nice and secure up this way so you're nice and snug. When you get to the very bottom, tie a knot, a single knot will do, and then mattress stitch up the back side and knot it off right over the shoulder. Do both sides that way, and then join me back. Okay, it's going together quickly. So let's grab our legs now and put them through the bottom. So we believe we have them centered. Maybe just bring your little toes up and make them meet. And now this piece of yarn that we have here is going to secure our tube so a child can't pull the legs through. So thread up your needle and just come through onto the bottom of your tube in between the rows, because we are going to make this disappear. So if you have your V-stitches pointed down, go into the row right between those. Then thread up your other piece of yarn and just come up a stitch in the same row going this direction, and then just gently pull this and we'll snug it up, and that's going to keep our feet in. Now when you set your little guy up, remember that the mattress stitch goes up, toes up. So you have to get your tube rolled around so your mattress stitch is on the top and your toes are up before we start sewing up the side. But for right now, I'm just going to tie a little knot right here. It's going to disappear into that row. I'm not going to make it super, super tight. That's not necessary. Triple knot it, bury the threads, sit your doll up, make sure that your toes are up, that your tube is nice and straight, and we're going to sew up one side. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Find your mattress stitch, make sure it stays on the top as it goes through the body. You'll know it's positioned correctly if your toes are pointed up. Now, give this a nice little tug so that it's nice and secure over the top of this leg. We don't want there to be any wiggle room. So right above the top of that leg, let's go into the V-stitches here and tie a knot. Leave your yarn end long enough to bury. And simply mattress stitch up to under the armpit and tie a knot. Then we're going to add some stuffing. We'll do that together. Well, that only took less than a minute. So when you mattress stitch up and you're ready to snug up under your arm and you've pulled that mattress stitch closed, then give it a tug like this so you're not actually cinching it up. So you just tie off right here, mattress stitch up, give it a pull, and then knot it under the arm, bury all your threads. Now the toes are still up. We're going to add some stuffing into the little chest cavity, just to round that out a little bit, give a cute shape. Do it on the front and the back. Little fingerfuls, we're not adding very much stuffing. And when you get it stuffed out so that you're happy with the shape, we're keeping the stuffing on top of our leg tube. We're not stuffing down past the top of our leg tube because we don't want the stuffing to come out. Our leg is where we stop. So you can give yours a fat little tummy or whatever makes you happy. Flip it around, take a look at it. Something that you think would feel good for a child that is going to be holding this. And you can see that we can articulate the legs. That's the coolest part of this doll. I might add just a little bit more. Okay, so then just come over to the other side, pull this nice and snug over the top of the leg. So we're not giving it too big of a hole, enough that it'll still rotate, but we don't want any stuffing to come out. So just thread your needle up and tie that first knot. Go through a V-stitch on both sides. Leave yourself a long enough yarn end to bury. Mattress stitch up and tie off under the armpit. When you snug your mattress stitch up, remember to then pull it this way so you're not bowing your side seam. And we'll be ready to make a head here in just a moment. Okay, so the last step for the actual doll before we add a baseball cap is to stuff out the head. So these were your beginning of your mattress stitch where we just knotted it off at the top, so we can just pop those right into the head and start stuffing it until you get a proportion that you like. And I find that I usually want to add a little bit more than what I think I will. So in order to be able to do that, until I'm ready to add the hat, I will just simply snug it up a little bit, keep narrowing it down a little bit at the top, putting my stuffing in, and then tie a bow up there until I'm ready to put the baseball cap on. And then that way I still have a chance to fine tune it just a little bit more. So we have a pretty good portion little head here. I'm going to add a little bit more stuffing. And I find it works best for me to add it to the center. Instead of trying to stuff out around the edges, I just keep adding it right into the center. Okay, so I'm going to tie this in a bow, shorten these down a tad bit. They don't need to be that long. And make a bow until I'm ready to put the cap on. Okay, our cute little doll right here. It's just precious. And it can sit and it can stand. I just think that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's make a baseball cap. Okay, our little doll is almost completed, but before we can add the eyes, we need to put the baseball cap on so we know where to put the eyes. So this is just 20 rows, and I'm going with a kind of a variegated gray and white. I just think it's pretty, but your baseball cap could be red or blue, whatever color you like. For the little brim, I'm using a really soft yarn for the brim. It's a Hobby Lobby super soft, so it's really easy to form it. And I'm going to pull up both ends, and one of them will always look a little better than the other. So whichever one gives me the smoothest rounded look, that's going to be the part of my brim that sticks out from the hat. So I'm going to cinch this up like a beanie just by snugging up both ends, bringing it to the middle, tying it off, then flipping it over. And then I'll show you how we're going to assemble it onto the head. Alrighty, I have my tube folded on under itself, and I'm cinching the two ends together. And we have one more step to do before we call it ready to sew on. So I'm going to cut these down and flip it. And tug on it just to get a nice shape going. Make sure that is the center top. Then I'm just going to take off one of these pieces of yarn that I just cut off from the top of the beanie and go around this bottom edge. That's going to, while we're sewing it onto the head, let us know that we're staying in the right track. So let's go under a row and over a row, under a row, over the row, until we get all the way around. Just leave our yarn ends hanging out. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around till I meet up with the starting point. For the brim, snug up both ends, not super snug, but this is my third baseball cap to make, and ironically, the end that I like to be sticking out of the cap seems to be my cast on row. And I don't know if it's because the longer stitches just look nice going around or what, but it just seems to make a more gently curved end of the beanie there. So I'm going to just tie a knot right here. Pick the end that you think gives you the smoothest look, because that's going to be what sticks out. And I'm I don't think it needs a second knot, but just in case. And bury that thread up into your brim, cut it off. Now what makes this so easy to put together, we're not trying to sew an intricate little brim onto our hat. We'll need to knot up this other end just to keep it from unraveling. We're just laying it over the top of our head. Okay, let's knot it. And we can bury that thread. Okay, if you're happy with the size and shape of your head, go ahead and remember it's going to have a hat on it, so you don't have to cinch this up really, really snug. You can have that opening there. And it gives you a nice rounded looking head. So let's set our little guy up and lay our brim right over our head like this. I'm going to have this be the back of my beanie. Setting it on top of the brim. Now our little brim sticks out. I'm having mine go out to the side. It couldn't be any easier. So decide how much brim you want sticking out. You have quite a bit of leeway here. Okay, now I'm going to take a piece of yarn and sew around so I have it on looking kind of like this. You want to keep the brim even, so keep track when you're sewing that you keep your brim coming around like this. Shift that around a little bit so that you have the same amount of brim coming out all the way around. Okay, so I want mine off a little bit to the side like a kid would wear it. Have a nice little amount of brim hanging down like this. And so thread up a needle. I'm going to use my gray thread and start sewing around. I'm spinning my little guy around, and I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot on these yarn tails. Stick them up into the cap. And you'll see the benefit of having that when you're sewing around. You'll see that piece of yarn going through your stitches, and you'll know that you're keeping your cap straight. So I'm just using my straight gray. I'm going to start right in the back here. And what you'll notice is that this is a 22 pin, this is a 22 pin. So if I go under a row on my head and go under a row on my cap, when I get all the way around, if I don't skip a row, the next row on my head, the next row on my cap, and I'm sewing right above that piece of yarn that I went over and under. So it's a really good guide. The next row on my head, and the very next row on the ball cap. When I get all the way around, and I'll just snug a little as I go, even when I'm going over the brim, if I keep my rows lined up, when I get to the back, it'll be perfectly matched up. It'll work every time. So with that in mind, I'm going to just keep looking at the hat, make sure I like the position of it, and work my way around. I'll join you back when I make it around to the back. Alrighty, well, I sewed all the way around. You're just gently snugging up your stitch so you're not distorting the head. And then push that cap down. get your little brim out. And at the back where I met up, and it was a perfect match, I'm just going to make sure that all the stitches are snugged but not over snugged, so we're not distorting the head, and just tie that off in a gentle knot. Bury your threads. Now you can still get your finger up in this part of it right here. So because our brim is stuffing this out a tiny little bit, if you want to, you could put just a little bit of stuffing right over here to round it out better. So that's optional. But either way, it's pretty cute. And now we can decide where to put the eyes on. So I buried my yarn ends, and I'm going to take just a tiny little bit of stuffing to compensate for this and just push it up over into the other side till my beanie's a little bit more rounded out. Maybe one more tiny little bit. There. Okay, so now you can fold the brim up and just put a stitch right in the middle so that little fingers can't get up in underneath the beanie. Underneath, I keep calling it a beanie, but it's actually a ball cap. Okay, so let's decide where to put the eyes. I feel like we should talk about the brim for just a minute. So I just knotted on a piece of thread, and I'm going to come up really close to the where the ball cap would be, and just go over and under a few rows until I'm over to here, just to keep little fingers from reaching up in there, finding that stuffing and pulling it out. I'm bringing my prototype up just to show you that we're going to do these little sleepy eyes. I'm going to call them praying eyes because they're looking down and they're closed. And this one has its wings on, just so simple. They're optional, but if you follow through to the end of the two-part series here, you'll see why the angel wings are on and how I'm going to finish it up. I think it'll be something unexpected. So let me put my prototype down. I have a nice long piece of yarn here. So let's decide where we're going to have our eyes. And our cap is at an angle, so we want to keep our eyes going straight across. So come in up underneath the edge of your cap, back at the back, look at it, decide where the center is going to be and where your first eye is going to come up. So I'm going to just, it's going to be subjective. I'm bringing mine up right here, I believe. Okay, maybe more like right here. Okay. Leave yourself a tail back here to tie onto. So I have V stitches going up this way, and it's just so simple because I came in on a V stitch where the V's are pointed down. So now the ones that are pointed up, I'm going to come straight over and have two full rows where the V stitches are pointed up, coming right across from it. And when you're working with black thread on a light color like this, you want to go deep and then just come down to the center, one little stitch down and come out and leave your thread underneath it. And that will make your eye have that little downward curve. So we have two rows. We came down like the little dots in the middle of each of your V stitches. We just came down one dot to get that gentle curve down. Now we're going to go right in that exact same stitch, come out one up from where we first went in, and trying to stay deep so you don't see it. your yarn running underneath this tube. So we're just up one, and that's just to give it a little bit of an eyelash up there. Then coming right back down into the same stitch that we first came in on, coming down at a little more of an angle, like this. So we have a little tiny V going up. This one's a little bit bigger. Go back into that same stitch. And now we have 2 rows where the V stitches are pointing up that are going to be in between our eyes. So we'll come in to the little stitch. Can't even find my needle. Lost the end of my needle here. There we go. So it's 2 full rows where the V stitches are coming up. Come in to the stitch right across from it. Now when you pull your thread across, you'll just have this little side piece here. That's optional. If you don't like it, just make just the rounded part of your eye. So now we'll just repeat what we did over here. We'll have 2 full rows going up. We'll come over. So we have the V stitches pointed upward. We'll come down 1 stitch, keeping our yarn underneath our needle. And we have our second little eye in. It's so simple to do it this way. Now we're coming up just 1 stitch up from the corner of the eye. Come back into where we went in originally. Come back out a little bit of an angle. Back in to the same stitch. And head on over back where we started. And gently finish that eye. Okay, and now we have 2 little, what I call praying eyes. Okay, so I'm going to come around here and just tie this off and bury the ends. And because they're black, we'll bury them up into the hat. Alrighty, so we have a cute little doll with articulating legs, wearing a cute little baseball cap with a brim. Pretty cute. And so that is the end of the tutorial for making the doll. Absolutely nothing about this doll could hurt a child. So there's no pipe cleaners, no safety eyes, no buttons, nothing. And I think that the fact that it can sit so easily and stay up is just a really nice feature of this doll. So if you want to stay tuned and add the angel wings, then that'll be the next part of this video, part 2.